This is a Founding Media podcast, produced at Austin Community College District. Welcome to episode 5 of Science in the Mall, y'all. I'm your co-host, Dan Dillard. Previous ABI intern, Marcia McCallum, is back again on the podcast, joining Nancy and I alongside her supervisor, David Medina, who is the Upstream Processing Manager at XBiotech. Marcia and David explain exactly what upstream processing means, get into the details of their day in the life of at XBiotech, and even share some funny stories from their time working in the lab together. They talk about how they used their unconventional education backgrounds and combined them with good attitude and eagerness to learn in order to thrive in their fields, and what they look for in someone's character when they're hiring at XBiotech. This is a great episode for anyone starting to apply to jobs or considering how they can build their resume to become candidates for the exciting bioscience opportunities in Austin. Let's get to it. XBiotech. What is it and what's upstream processing, David?
Oh, XBiotech. Okay, XBiotech is, of course, in the name, a biotech company. So we focus on, for the most part, human monoclonal antibody production using mammalian cell lines, specifically CHO. CHO cell lines for therapeutics serve mainly oncology and inflammation purposes, diseases.
I think you need to go back and translate that into English. That was like way too high level. It's awesome. I understood it, but I think like there was a whole lot of terminology in there that we speak and most people don't.
Okay, so basically we take cells.
Cells, yeah.
We have cells coming from Chinese hamster ovary cells, CHO cells, and they're engineered to produce a specific antibody. We take that, we put the DNA inside the CHO cells, and they produce a specific antibody for therapeutic purposes to help with some diseases, mostly oncology. My experience for the most part has been on oncology, but autoimmune diseases as well, like arthritis and things of that nature, and inflammation diseases. But in a nutshell, that's what we work on here.
Yeah, and they are true human antibodies also.
I was going to get there.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
It's like being at work.
Knows what that is. You walk around your house, you're true human.
Yeah, so the way we select the actual antibody here, there's multiple ways to do it. One of them is, which is long-standing, it's called hybridoma, that you take mouse and you cause an immune response to the mice, and then you remove the spleen, and then you start collecting antibodies there. But the way we do it here is actually from human donors, blood donors, that they already have an immunity response to a specific disease. And so we will collect the blood from a donor and actually find this specific antibody. So you bypass the mouse immunization part, you bypass the antibody engineering part that you have to humanize it. It's just because it's already true human. It's already humanized. Mm-hmm. It's from an actual human, so you already have the sequence of a human antibody rather than trying to get it from a mouse and humanizing it. So
no removing of the spleen of humans, though, right?
No, just the mice.
Spleen were killed in the process of this.
It's just a little prick to get the blood, and then that's where it comes from.
Just as a clarification, like when people, when he was saying humanize, I mean, why, autoimmune or like when you have transplants and stuff and there's a reaction, it's because it's not self. And what he's meaning by that is that there's part of the antibody, if it came from a mouse, that would tell your body that it's not human. And it doesn't work as well because it's not human. Am I right?
Yeah, correct. So basically, mice are, we're mammalians, so the genome, the DNA is pretty, there's a good portion of it that is actually the same as far as mammalian, but there's another part, the mouse part, that we have to basically remove. And based upon a lot of the data that's been collected, we sort of kind of have a pretty good idea of where the mouse part starts. And then we just cut it from there and put a human. So we basically remove the mouse pieces and put the human pieces on it. Now, this is based on data, based on papers, but with the human aspect, if you're getting the antibody that's already true human, you bypass all that, so you save a lot of time, and there's a lot of error that's not done because it's already human.
And that's what that means to be upstream.
Well, that comes before upstream. That's all. That's all. Antibody engineering, actually checking the antibody. The upstream, it's already gone through cell line. It's already introduced into the mammalian cell line that we use here. And what we do is just like we produce it at a large scale. We manufacture the antibody in a large scale to be harvested and purified to be ready for use, to go into aseptic field, formulated to go into humans. So we make it at a mass scale. At the end of our process of upstream process, it's still dirty. And then it goes down to the downstream process, which is already pure. It gets purified. All the other host cell proteins from the actual CHO cells is removed, and it's just all you're left over with antibody on a formulation buffer that's ready to go inside humans to inject.
So for clarification, first there's the I'm going to call it extraction, but there's that portion of it, the medicine, and then there's upstream to mass produce it, but it's still has to be filtered, and then there's downstream that filters it and gets it cleaned before it goes out the door, or before it gets quality controlled and goes out the door. Is that more or less the path?
More or less, yes. Yeah. So we mass produce the antibody. We mass produce the antibody at large scale, and then downstream purifies it. And gets it ready. So they do a buffer exchange. They remove the media that we use, and they put it into a buffer that's ready to go into humans. It won't kill them.
If you did it right, we need that QA person.
If we do it right, yes.
And we do all this on site in our facility. We go all the way from beginning of the development of getting it into the CHO cell, transfecting it in, all the way to getting it into syringes and into powder form.
So you take the DNA out of the blood and get that into cells.
That's the first thing, is identifying the antibody, getting that antibody, and then we're like in the middle.
Is there terminology for that?
There was, but I can't think about it at the moment.
You're like, it's not my department, so no.
No.
But we also do a lot of the product development too. See if we can get it into large scale production, and what kind of variables to culture it. And all that goes through us too.
So is there such a thing as like finding one of these antibodies and there isn't a way to mass produce it?
Well, there's multiple steps that needs to happen before it actually gets to us. For the most part, Suyu, which is our cell line development, she's the one that has the biggest headaches, because she has to get the antibody, she has to get all this DNA, the sequencing, the insert into the CHO cells, and try to find a good producer at that level before we get it. So the biggest screening, the most screening happens at her level. She screens thousands and tens of thousands of actual clones before we can actually find a couple that are actually good enough to move forward, and it comes to us.
I mean, we were talking to all of you guys and talking to Marcia quite a bit, and have you always been at XBiotech, David? And where's your role in this?
Oh no, I just barely have 2 years here.
But you run this department?
Yes.
Okay. I don't like saying that, because the collaboration that myself and my team have it's great. It's awesome. I can't take credit. Marcia, she's very instrumental, man. I can't survive without her, and we depend so much on each other. It's a great dynamic. By title, I am the manager of the group, but everybody had a special role, and we pick each other up.
But you got hired to the role because you already were doing that.
Yeah, so I have, prior here, I was over 18 years, going on 19 years experience in upstream. I've been around the block a few times, and I've seen the actual I've seen the process
of knowledge.
I've seen the processes evolve over time, the technology evolve over time, and you pick up things here and there, and and put it all together. So So I've learned a lot over the years here, and I guess that's why, with the experience that I've had, that's why I fell in the manager role here.
I'm curious what exactly the dynamic is like at your lab. What's the day in the life look like in the upstream processing? We talked a little bit about that and it kind of segmented out. But what's the day-to-day look like?
Marcia, you want to answer that?
First, it starts with Marcia cheering her way into the thing, whistling Dixie at 4 in the morning.
Really early, in the dark hours in the morning.
Well, for upstream, it's because we're dealing with cell culture. They pretty much set the timeline for us. I mean, we can try to guide them, by when we inoculate and when we passage as to pull them into our timeline. But overall, the cells, they call the timeline. So usually when I get there in the morning, the first thing I'm doing is, okay, this is what needs to be addressed today. But kind of the task, not so much, a task list, but not a task list, more of goals that need to be achieved that day when it comes directly with the culture. And then once that's kind of rolling, and we've done whatever processes, if it's a small process day, then we do have our trending and an analysis of the data, and we do have a little bit of paperwork. But most of the time, all of us are like, you ready to go inside? Let's go inside. It's time to go inside. And we're ready to get into the clean room and actually do the whatever process it might be that day to get it started and see how the culture is developing and, where the day's going to lead us, because you don't know until that first sample what your day's fully going to look like.
So everybody goes in at the same time? It's not like, oh, I'm in there and he's out here doing paperwork and...
Sometimes being that we are GMP, we work in pairs. So there's always a minimal of 2 people in there, so that you have somebody who is completing the task, somebody who is verifying and signing for everything that you're doing. So there's at least a minimal of 2 people in there. And when we have big process days, we're all in there. And it takes all 5 of us to get that large process done. So it just kind of depends on what's happening on the day, which is what's exciting about upstream is, like I say, until you take that first sample, you don't really know how your day's going to go. You can try to prepare for it, but you just never know. And that just makes the day very interesting.
I mean, when you talk about a large sample, or is that the word you use? Like my recollection is you were telling me it's like 1,000 liters or something ridiculous.
We do have a 1,000-liter reactor. It does. Remember the little one in the lab that just sat on the table?
Yeah, it was like a 1 liter, right?
Yeah, and then we had the one that they a reactor that they did the E. coli in for the manufacturing classes. Mm-hmm. The one that we end up with is usually close to about 500 liters. And then we sometimes run multiple reactors at the same time with this volume.
Of the same thing, just like in tandem, or is a bunch of different things?
Yeah, we've been known to have up to 4 reactors of the same molecule going on in one process room, while we have another reactor in another process room going on, while we're still in scale up of the small reactors in another room, and then we've got some in flasks. So we've got them usually at all stages going on at the same time.
Are you picturing a circus, Dan? Are you picturing these guys in their bunny suits running around from one to the next? I want to hear a funny story from in the clean room, and it could be a win or it could be a.
Okay, so I have won the award for the worst sterile weld ever. So what it is we have bags of media. Yeah, we have these bags of media and bags of supplemental feeds, and we connect them to the reactors via a sterile weld, which is a machine that'll connect 2 pieces of plastic, 2 pieces of tubing, sterile weld them together, and then take the excess off. So now it's sterilely connected. The media is now sterilely connected to the bag. And it had been a long week, and I was working the sterile welder from behind, and then if you do make a boo-boo with a sterile welder, it's still sterile. You can just correct your mistake. So I made a boo-boo.
Part of your finger welded into it.
Well, I made a boo-boo, and I looked up at it, and I went, oh, I connected the wrong thing. So I went back and did it again. I went, I corrected it again. I had 3 welds, and then I finally picked it up, and I sterile welded a circle. There was nothing connected whatsoever but excess tubing. And that's when they actually took a picture of it and went, you win.
and
Just
sent you
because
home. Like, could
it's
have
I mean, nothing happened because it's still sterile and you can't, like I said, you can correct your mistakes. But I was like, how the heck did I just sterile weld a circle?
I think that was before my time.
Yes, nothing was connected. Everything was still kind of sitting there, and all the excess tube that I was supposed to be sterile welding off was now sterile welded all to itself.
So, David, game on, man. You
Yeah.
had a chance to take the title from him.
Oh, Lord. That never happened to me.
And I'd be happy. It has only happened once, and I will never be able to live it down ever. I still get reminded of it when we're in the clean room. And I'm welding. Are you sure you got the right? Yes, I'm pretty sure I got this.
Oh, my God. I can't think of one at the moment. Of a funny thing.
They ever leak or like 500 liters pouring down the hallway?
Hopefully never that far.
Well, we can say about the blooper that happened that weekend with a 200-liter barrel tipped over.
Oh. So that's what I say. The media isn't always, it's sometimes in large 200-liter barrels, 500-liter totes, all sorts of stuff. And you have to push it up onto a floor scale. And the barrel one, it did not want to go up onto the floor scale, and it didn't. And it fell right over. And one of the gentlemen that was right next to it when it was happening was still saying last week, I need new shoes. All I can smell is media on my shoes.
Yeah.
Wow.
David, I think the last time we talked about like the most challenging day that you guys have seen is you kind of nicknamed it the Apollo 13. You can talk more about that.
Harvest Day.
I can't wait.
Oh, that was Harvest Day. What a day. It'll forever be remembered as one. Yeah. Okay. So this is a brand new process. The first time we're actually running it in a big scale. And we have no data whatsoever to support how many filters we need to clarify this bioreactor. So we went and we put in more than what we usually use for a bioreactor because we had a previous process that reached around the same cell density, but we had 6 filters of the stacks, so the Paul stacks filters. These are the clarification kit that we use. So we made a determination. You know what? We believe 8 filters would suffice. So that was the decision was made, and definitely that came back really that came to bite us in the butt because that was clearly not enough. The process again, first time process, the pH went down, and which caused the viability to drop significantly. And the lower the viability, the worse it is to filter. And so we ended up clogging that first stack of 8, then we had to come and bring another 5, prepping up. I'm talking about this is like already in the evening, right? Remind me, Marcia, please interrupt if I'm wrong.
No, we started at 7:30 in the morning. And we had our flow rate down to about 1.6 liters a minute.
What's it?
What's normal? Yeah.
In a good day, if everything goes perfectly, our max is 5.8, 5.8 liters a minute. We were going. We started higher. We started around 4. We didn't want to start in the middle and then gauge it from there. Yeah, but we went down really low because our pressures just went way high.
And as I said, we got down to about 1.6 at about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and then we were down to about 300 mils a minute trying to get this through. And
so you can't stop. You can't just leave it and let it go overnight and check on it in the morning.
No, it has to be, because we deal off of pressures, it has to constantly be monitored. And so we set up a new
skid.
set up a new rack of filters. Takes autoclaving, new assemblies, getting everything in there, getting it all flushed out, which takes an hour. Then getting the water out of the flush that's in there out, and then trying to hook everything back up. So I think we finished at around 11:30 that night.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to say later, based on what you just
Well, no,
described.
that's when we finished. That's not when we got out of there. But that's about when we finished, because now there's notes and stuff you have to write, clean up. And but the one thing I can say about that day is, as wrong as everything went at every turn, we learned something new. And it really was a victory for our team, because we hung in there together till the very, we came in as a team and we left as a team. And we all went through it together.
Oh yeah.
I mean, that's super interesting. I mean, I'm thinking of like, maybe from David's perspective of like having to pick a team. Like, what are you looking for in people that they're going to stay and they're going to not have I mean, you got to have a good attitude. You guys are laughing about it. I'm assuming you weren't laughing at the time,
Oh, yeah.
but I bet you made the best of it. I bet you weren't like slamming things and cussing either, right?
Oh, no.
No.
So, yeah, I would love to hear what you're looking for when you're assembling the right people for something like this.
Well, like I said, I told you guys before, I was very fortunate and blessed. When I came here, the team was as is. We had the team minus one person. He's no longer here because he was with another company. But the team that I had, I couldn't pick the better. I could not have picked a better team. It's not because Marcia's listening. It's just, it's my team is very eager, very driven, hungry to learn more, and they just go getters, man. They don't complain too much, and they don't complain too much. But no, I mean, I cannot honestly, I cannot have picked a better team. Their attitude is very good. They're willing to go the extra mile to to get things done, and not only done, just done right. And it's awesome. But it's good to have skill and to know what you're doing, but the attitude goes a long way as well. So you have to have both. In my eyes, when I'm looking for someone, skills is good. Skills is good, but if you have all the skills in the world and you have a bad attitude, nobody can work with you. That causes concern as well. So it's a mix. It's a combination of both.
Talking about teams, both of you in our previous conversations talked about an unconventional educational background to get into the industry. So curious what that's been like as you progress through your career, and also, do you find that the industry has had biases towards people with like a 4-year degree?
Oh, now we need to know what was the word you used for it? Unconventional. Yes.
Yeah. I have 2 associates. One is in general science, and one is in an applied science and biotechnology. Mm-hmm. And I do have to admit, XBiotech took a chance on me, because most of the time they're looking for somebody who has a bachelor's. But I'd like to say that I came in with my 2 associates, but I also came in with, as Dave, that want to learn. I may not know everything right now, but I'm willing to learn everything.
I'll attest to that.
Okay, my background is very unconventional. Okay, previously, before I got into biotech, I was in the technology. I was doing networking. I did even printing. Offset printing, digital printing. So I was in operations. So that was my background. And I just got tired of the second shifts and all these things of that nature. And I saw a posting, and it was the company was Bristol Myers Squibb at that time. This is back in 2000. Yeah, this is back in 2002. So I applied for the position. I went in there. Again, my background is nowhere near what they were actually looking for. But what got me into the door was basically the question, okay, what do you do as a hobby? That was a question that got me in the door. Imagine that. Because, my hobby at the time, those things change over time.
Growing CHO cells.
Oh, no. That's Marcia's hobby.
Sorry.
Yeah, my hobby was auto mechanics. And back in the day, big single-use bioreactors was not a thing at the time. Big stainless steel bioreactors, things that you have to take apart and put together, that was a thing. And Bristol Myers at the time, that was their platform, large scale. So they think, okay, this guy is auto mechanics. He's good with his hands. He's not afraid to take things apart and put them back together. Mm-hmm. Okay, so That, and also, I guess they saw the attitude. I was hungry to learn, and I answered some basic science questions. But the actual, the guy that I was looking for, because I was going to be more or less in the large scale, dealing with the big bioreactors. And again, I wasn't afraid to take things apart based on my auto mechanics hobby. So that's what got me in the door. And 10 years, almost 11 years later, I was the leader of the lab at the time.
What was the position?
I started low as a lab technician at the time.
Uh-huh.
I was a lab technician. That's what I applied for. And, I got in, but again, I was going to be dealing with the large scale bioreactors, instrumentation, the instrumentation that is used to analyze the bioreactors, like the Nova. The Nova back then was the Nova 250. Right now we have a 400 and the Flex 2. But the 250, if I tell you how ancient that is, oh my God, you'll laugh. So I was getting, my job was to get the instrumentation ready for the actual people to come in and do the sampling. Mm-hmm. And also deal with the large scale bioreactors, taking them apart, doing PMs on them, getting them ready for operations. Mm-hmm. So when I first got there, a week later, it was a one big, huge clean room full of process vessels. These are stainless steel vessels, sort of kind of stainless steel bioreactors. There were 500 liters, 200 liters, things like that. So they told me, okay, I need you to do this, PM these things. It's like a whole clean room full of them. They had
inside.
So
is that what you do?
No. Taking them apart, they were not big enough. I didn't fit. So, so basically, what I did, I had to take them apart, change the gaskets, inspect everything, put new things on it, and put them back together. The person that was there for 2 weeks before me would do like one at a day, two a day. I come in not knowing, okay, this is easy. I did 26 in a day. And 26.
Let's hire this guy.
The guy was writing a dissertation on each one.
Oh God! Yeah. So when at the end of the day, okay, how many did you do? I did all these. 20. You did all that? Yeah, I did all that. No, yeah, I did it. Okay, so yeah.
They're like, we need to go inspect. You couldn't have done that.
Oh no, yeah. So yes, they did. They did go and inspect. So right. Yeah. So everything was good. Everything was kosher. So again, I guess they were very happy that I was there.
Well, it sounds like. Go ahead.
Yeah. So again, so it was the team that interviewed me took a chance from me based upon the attitude that I had, and not necessarily the skill, but the hobby. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And that I was trainable. And here I am, 20 years later. So
what degree do you have?
It was networking. It was sort of kind of. I have some certifications on networking, all technology based.
Right.
Yeah.
Sounds like to me that even though the request, as Marcia pointed out, says like they prefer like a 4-year degree, but it shouldn't deter you from applying because there's other soft skills or other hobby skills that can get you in the door anyway. So I guess the message being heard here is, as long as you've got the attitude and willing to learn and you can show that to them, go for it.
Is that true though? Like nowadays I always hear, and I don't know whether it's accurate, but there's like these, algorithms that just, go through everybody's stuff and weed everybody out if you don't have the right words. And so that, like, if it doesn't have a 4-year degree, that they would just.
I have a funny story about that. So, so basically, I think I told you guys, I applied when I saw the position for XBiotech. It was like basically 11:30 on a Friday, about to be midnight. I saw the position, and I was like, okay. Of course, I didn't have the background as far as education, as degree, but I had everything else. I had all this experience, and so I applied. I sent my resume in and whatever. This is Friday midnight. All right. Monday morning, my boss now, he's looking at it. He's looking at the at the website, trying to see if there's any applicants, any hits on it. And mind you, he posted that position Friday, and I applied Friday evening. Monday morning, he's looking at it. There's nobody in my in the approved folder, but there was my resume was in the rejected folder. it was in angry because the algorithm kicked me over to the rejected folder. Right. So he said, I thank God, he decided to read it. He was like, holy crap. this doesn't belong here. So he took it out and he emailed me that Monday morning at 10 a.m. Eastern time, which is 9. Usually his routine here is 8:30. He comes in, he gets a coffee, he sits down. So by 9 o'clock, he's checking. So 10 o'clock, so that was the first thing he did when he got to his computer. That's when he contacted me. So, but I found out that story that my application was in a rejected folder when I was already here.
Do you think it has any effect on how they process them now? Like, have they changed anything to make sure that doesn't happen again? Because I think what Dan said is totally valid. It's like, there's just other things that you can write a job description and you can say, I need all these things, and you're brainstorming. You're like, I need this, but people will not apply because they don't have all of them, but they don't realize that they also have a bunch of stuff that wasn't listed there that this company's going to get that they didn't even know they were going to get.
Yeah. Well, I can say from my end, for being in the hiring process, is that even though the search engine that we use for resumes, I always check both folders because you just never know what you're going to find. And even though the computer, the analysis is rejecting it, I would say look at it anyway because they took the time to apply. They deserve the right to at least read their resume and see what they have to say, especially if it has a cover letter on it. I think those are a good way to introduce yourself and introduce yourself with personality that you sometimes can't get in a resume.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Cover letters say a lot.
Yes,
I know people always say they're not necessary. I'm like, oh my God, cover letter is all you need. Like, this is your chance to.
Nowadays, they do cover letters, and then some places allow you to record some answers. And so they'll ask some pre-interview questions, and you just record the answers. And so before you interview the person, you can read the cover letter and maybe have 2 or 3 of their voice answers on it, so you can kind of tell what the personality is like. And that's super important to kind of what we were talking about, show the character of the individual just by how they answer their questions.
Yeah. One of my interviews was like that. So basically, I sent in my resume and stuff, but I had to go on a website and actually not just audio record; it was actually a video. Yeah. So I had to actually answer some of the questions that I got an email. Okay, please answer this, and then I had to record myself. And if I made a boo boo, I had a chance to erase it one time. I only had one redo for questions, and so definitely, I've gone through that as well. And in my previous company, when I had, when I was helping another department hire. So I had to go through the folders of the approved and also rejected, to go through, because sometimes, there's somebody that in a rejected folder that you can miss that could be a good fit.
I do wish they would just sort of tweak the algorithm to not have as many, okay, that's great. You guys will look at it, but some people won't. And it's like, I wish HR was actually, iterating that and getting it better and better. Like, okay, we pulled this out. That's the 3rd time this year that we pulled somebody out that had these things. Let's just change our.
It. Yeah.
Yeah. It's. Yeah. It's tricky. But, there's probably a lot of people, I hope, that'll listen to this that are, people going to the biotech program or people getting degrees at UT that have no idea what to do next, even PhDs, right? And I see it often, people trying to transition from academia to industry. And so I would love to hear, your take on, what kind of advice you would give those people, like what other kinds of PhD students, what other things should they be, educational opportunities should they be taking while they're working on their PhD, or, anybody. Any opinion on that?
Well, I am lucky and fortunate enough that where I get to go to work every day, I still get to learn. I still get to feel like I'm growing. And so the only thing I'm missing from what feels like school, other than lectures, is the testing and the stuff like that. You still get that feeling that you're, like I say, you're learning, you're growing, you're still, even if you've got your PhD, there's still more to learn. So go into a work position with the thought that, what can I learn today? Even though nobody's going to test you on it, nobody's going to, give you a grade or anything like that. I just think if you just go in and say, I'm still learning and I want to keep learning, I think you make the transition really, really easily.
Except for you still have to get your foot in the door. And so I'd be curious to hear David's answer on that too, just because, you see people all the time that, they don't know how to make that transition because you have to actually get the interview and you have to get the job.
And that's where their personality and this is where personality and their attitude comes in. You know what I mean? Because I had a boss, my first boss in Bristol Myers Squibb, he had just come out of academia as a PhD coming into to be my boss, and the guy was awesome. I thank God for him every day, because he exposed me to a lot of different things. Through him, I learned a lot because he took the chance. But the thing is that he came in with a good attitude, a winning attitude, and even though he had a PhD, he was in the lab. He was working in the lab, because I've also seen the other side of it. People with PhD, they don't want to be in the lab. Okay. All they want to do is go ahead and stay in their office looking at data all day. Okay, you do what I did. I already did my time. You know what I mean? Right. So, I did my time and I don't need to do this. That's why I went to school, because I don't need to do this, because I don't want to do this. No, you got to come in with the right attitude. Once that will get you, you have all the skills, you have all the necessary, but, you need to get in here. You need to work at it. The attitude, that's where that comes in quite a bit. How, if I can work with you or not. And like I said,
so
I was
do you think,
go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was just thinking of the skills and in academia, like at the PhD level, you have a really specific thing that you've been studying. And so that's always the tricky part is do you have the skills? Have you ever done, biomanufacturing, or have you ever done, besides in a 200 ml flask for, your bacteria that you're doing or whatever?
Well, some things, it's nice to have, like I said, cell culture background, know how you're doing the septic technique, because I had another manager. This is the last manager before I jumped Bristol Myers Squibb. She had a postdoc, she had a postdoc, this lady, whatever, but she did not know what a bioreactor was. She did not know what anything does. She didn't even know how to make media. Nothing. But then again, she didn't have the proper attitude. Now, I ended up, for the most part, as much as I, like I said, since I was the lead of the lab at that time, okay, this is a bioreactor. This is how we put it together. This is how we run. This is how you control it. This is, what we're looking at here. So I'm teaching her the whole thing. So she was, in the beginning, she was very receptive. But then she just turned around, did a full 180 on me, okay, and became very snappy. You know what I mean? So, but again, there's things that you can actually learn coming in. You know what I mean? You can learn it, like I said, I came in not knowing anything, right. And I was able to learn fairly quickly, but again, you have to, you got to have the right attitude. That's why I emphasize the attitude, just because, personally, I think that's one of the things that has me where I am, in a sense. Basically the go-getter attitude. If I don't know it, I will learn it. I will get things done. I will solve the issue. That attitude, I think, will get you pretty far as well. Nobody wants to work with somebody that thinks they know it all and they don't know anything.
No, you mentioned it before. It's the team. Right. You mentioned it before. It's the team that you build. It's the amount of time that you spend with them. So you definitely want good attitude, a good work environment, and all that kind of good stuff. Mm-hmm. This has been a wonderful conversation.
Are you guys hiring? Not for me. I'm just thinking, I've got people coming through. They're always asking me. XBiotech always comes up as what job opportunities.
One last thought, though. I was doing an interview with a gentleman that actually works with us now. And, he was finishing up his bachelor's. He was also an athlete. And I asked, some of the questions I asked him were based off his sports that he played, because it was a team sport. Mm-hmm. And so I asked him what his goals were with his athletic career. And once he told me that it was still very team oriented. He was like, well, of course I want to stand out, but if the team doesn't win, then I'm not going to stand out.
Right.
And so that was one way to bring in his personality.
Nice.
And it was also, he had said, my grades weren't the best. He goes, but I loved labs. Always made great grades in labs. Loved being in the lab. Loved trying to do the experiments, and whether they failed or not, I loved them. And that's when when I was looking, to me, that stood out a lot too. That he brought something from the outside of how he works, and then something of his actual skills.
Yeah, because it's about the person. It's about who they are as an individual, and that's not necessarily the experience they've had in a work environment before, but it shows in other areas.
Because even if you've had that experience, you still have to learn it XBiotech's way or whoever's way, right? You still, it, but you still have to learn it. You still have to get trained just like everybody else.
Cool. Well,
thank
you all, Nancy, Marcia, David.
Thank you
for the time we shared today. We learned so much about what you guys do, what's most important in the actual work life and work balance. And so thank you very much for the time. We
and just know that we also will be talking to people in downstream processing. So we'll hear the rest of the story of what happens when they go to clean all this mess that these guys make.
Well, it's kind of funny with upstream and downstream. We treat it as aseptically as we can, sterile gloves. But when we hand it off, they're just kind of like, ew. But to us, we're like, oh my gosh, that's so clean from where it used to be. And, we treat them, so that we don't have any cross-contamination, no bacteria or anything. But it's still, once it gets to them, there's still a lot that needs to be done.
Right. It's a little cruder at that point.
Thank you so much, Marcia and David, for joining Nancy and I on this episode of Science in the Mall, y'all. We learned so much about all the work that goes into developing and manufacturing medicine, and it was inspiring to get to know your personal journeys and learn how you ended up at XBiotech's lab. The importance of someone's attitude and character when it comes to the hiring process is such an important insight to have, and it's nice to know you'll have so much fun in the lab while doing such important work. Thank you so much for listening, and if you felt inspired by this episode, please share it with your friends. Tune in next time to learn the other side of XBiotech, downstream processing, and get more advice about securing a job in the biosciences. See y'all then. This is a Founding Media podcast produced in partnership with Austin Community College's Bioscience Incubator, which is the region's only wet lab space in Austin's growing bioscience industry.